Hey, good late afternoon, everybody. It is October 8th, 2023, and we are in the Old Testament book of 1 Kings. I'm going to read chapter 3 today. All right. The famous section where Solomon asks for wisdom, which is what we all remember him for. Some things to note. He doesn't actually ask for wisdom. He asks for a discerning heart, essentially. And from that comes wisdom. So he wants to discern God's will, right or wrong, which we would call wisdom today. God is so impressed that that's what Solomon wants, that he says, you know what, I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you everything else that you didn't ask for, blessings on your kingdom. You're going to have descendants. You're going to have wealth, so long as you're following me. Don't follow me, all that's off the table. We see a quick story that Solomon marries the daughter of Pharaoh, and it just zips right along. Now our author here, we said this before, we're not necessarily getting a chronological, boom, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. He starts and says, oh, this happens, and we follow that kind of arc, and then we move to the next thing and follow that kind of arc, and then our author will put it all together at some point. So he talks about Saul marrying Pharaoh's daughter, and he kind of drops it. So he starts that arc, and he backs off and moves to the next thing. We've seen him do that before. Did that with David when he talked about the many wives, and then he went to something else, and then we find out that David's penchant for the ladies is what got him in trouble. And we're going to see the same thing for Solomon. So when we're reading through these 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, whenever we see an arc starting and it doesn't quite stop, our author's going to come back to that at some point. Display of Solomon's wisdom, and we have the two prostitutes who come to him. So prostitutes would be a low class of women, but apparently they could go to the king if they had an issue that they needed him to deal with, and that's what happens. And Solomon's wisdom is to say, hey, you know what, I understand that a parent for their child, that love is pretty good, and a parent would rather see their child go with someone else than to see them die. So that's where he comes up with this, hey, we're going to chop the child in half and you can each have half. And he understands that the real parent of that child is going to say, no, I would rather lose a child than kill a child. While to the other one who's just trying to inflict some pain on the other person says, oh, hey, that works for me, cut him in half, I'll take my half and go. And that's where we get this wisdom of Solomon. So that's where it starts. That's his reputation, that he's got that discerning heart. Now that when he's following God and in alignment with God, the will of God is showing itself in his actions and his deeds. So let's go ahead and we're going to read 1 Kings chapter 3. Now Solomon made a treaty with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married Pharaoh's daughter. Then he brought her to the city of David until he had finished building his own house, and the house of the Lord, and the wall all around Jerusalem. Meanwhile, the people sacrificed at the high places, because there was no house built for the name of the Lord until those days. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of his father David, except that he sacrificed and burned incense at the high places. Now the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what shall I give you? And Solomon said, you have shown great mercy to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in truth and righteousness and in uprightness of heart with you. You have continued this great kindness for him, and you have given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king instead of my father David, but I am a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to be numbered or counted. Therefore give to your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil, for who is able to judge this great people of yours? This speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing. Then God said to him, because you have asked this thing, and have not asked long life for yourself, nor have you asked for riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern justice, behold, I have done according to your words. See, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has not been anyone like you before you, nor shall anyone like you arise after you. And I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be anyone like you among the kings all your days. So if you walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. Then Solomon awoke, and indeed it had been a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, offered up burnt offerings, offered peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. Now 2 women who were harlots came to the king and stood before him. And one woman said, "O my lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house. And I gave birth while she was in the house. And then it happened the 3rd day that after I had given birth, that this woman also gave birth, and we were together. No one was with us in the house except the 2 of us in the house. And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on it. She arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your maidservant slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I arose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was dead. But when I had examined him in the morning, indeed he was not my son whom I had born." Then the other woman said, "No, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son." And the first woman said, "No, but the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son." Thus they spoke before the king. And the king said, "The one says, 'This is my son who lives, and your son is the dead one.' And the other says, 'No, but your son is the dead one, and my son is the living one.'" Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, "Divide the living child in 2, and give half to one and half to the other." Then the woman whose son was living spoke to the king, for she yearned with compassion for her son. And she said, "Oh, my lord, give her the living child, and by no means kill him." But the other said, "Let him be neither mine nor yours, but divide him." So the king answered and said, "Give the first woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is his mother." And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had rendered, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. May God bless the reading of his word. May God bless you. Bye.